Hi, everybody. Welcome to We Gotta Talk. So, what happens when a liberal and a conservative sit down for a cup of virtual coffee? Today's episode is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm bringing on a guest who, in a lot of ways, ideologically represents the opposite of what I believe, whether that's in relation to reproductive rights, even our specific stances on spirituality, gun laws, anything that you can think of that's one of those typical big ticket, third rail issues, the type of topics they tell you to never bring up with friends. That's what we're doing today. We're bringing up those issues and more with someone who I consider to be a digital friend of mine, someone I've known professionally for years, and someone, most importantly, who I've been able to interact with in a really respectful way, despite the fact that we are equally aware of our opposing viewpoints on so many big ticket topics. I talk a lot on this platform about breaking an echo chamber, breaking through to the other side, being deliberate in who we invite into conversation in an effort to grow in compassion, to find commonalities where you might not think they exist, and to more than anything, learn how to treat like people, like humans, like, as you'll hear today's guest say, someone with a soul behind the screen. Today's guest is Lauren Eberspacher. She is an author, a farm wife, and a mom. I asked her how she wanted to be introed, and she said that, which I love. Author, farm wife, and mom. She has been published multiple times on online platforms, writing a lot about her faith, her Christianity, her motherhood journey, what it's like living in small town America and raising a big family. I believe she also added homeschool teacher to her list recently, to her resume. Needless to say, Lauren and I live really different types of lives. Geographically speaking, we have different political beliefs, and you'll hear us dive into some of those finer points during the interview. But what I have been able to rely on Lauren to do most reliably, almost more than anyone else on social media, is to be a listening ear and a kind person in times of strife. I can't tell you how many times I've gone online and posted something that's inevitably stirred up some kind of storm. And the one person who is not sitting in judgment of me and my beliefs has been Lauren. And we'll have these like back and forth voice note conversations where we're like, oh my gosh, this happened and I can't believe that it created this and that. And rather than someone who disagrees with me, perhaps at face value on a lot of these issues, coming at me with a sense of judgment or an I told you so or whatever. It's often like, wow, I feel for you. I hear you. I'm sorry you're going through that. I told her, isn't it ironic that of all the people on this platform that are allegedly falling on the same side as me in a lot of these issues, the one person who's actually kind about it is someone I technically don't agree with on much. Um, Guys, here's what I want you to get out of this conversation is an ability to engage with people you may not agree with on everything in a kind and respectful way. And I was thinking, how do I tackle this on the podcast? And I thought, well, I guess there's no better way to do it than to model it, to bring on someone who knows full well and who I know full well doesn't really necessarily land on the same side of a lot of big ticket life issues, but still shows up with love, still shows up with that curiosity that I'm always rambling on about on social media, that desire to understand, who truly is living out the phrase that I live by too, which is break the echo chamber. As they always say, no one is trying to pull you over to their side or evangelize you or change the way you vote or change the way you think. But gosh, what a better world it would be if we could all show up in curiosity with one another. So that's what today's conversation is. It's all about modeling and giving you a peek into how I like to put this into practice in my daily life. Hopefully, in some way, this is an inspiration to you. I really enjoyed this conversation with Lauren. And I think inevitably, you're probably going to get a little bit heated when you hear certain parts of this conversation, depending on what side you fall on. If you align more with my side of things, that's a little more liberal, or Lauren's side of things, that's a little more conservative, you're going to hear a point of view in this conversation that you don't agree with, whether it's coming from me or Lauren. And that's kind of the whole point. the exercise of getting uncomfortable in the name of finding peace, finding commonality, because there are a lot of big things happening in the world today that require one side to see the perspective of the other. So if we can do this in small ways, how much better the world would be in big ways. So, anyhow, that sounds so overly optimistic, but I am who I am. I'm hopeful. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Lauren Eberspacher. All right, guys, welcome to We Gotta Talk. This is an episode that I'm so excited to bring you into. My friend Lauren Eberspacher is here. She is an author, a farm wife, and a mom. And we're here to parse a very, very big question today, Lauren. Are you ready for it?
Ready.
Why can't conservatives and liberals get along? It's
Why
just,
can't we get along?
it is the weirdest thing. Okay, so guys, everyone on my platform is probably pretty familiar with where I stand on a lot of things. But Lauren, if you're so comfortable doing this, I would love to. I think the point of this conversation, let me start here, is to model that it is possible to be decent and civil with
Mhm.
someone that maybe you don't line up with in every single way, but moreover, that the aim should be to look for those similarities or the things that motivate us, because we are all trapped within the same borders of this country. We are all citizens that want the best, presumably, for our country and our families. And we got to find a way to get along.
Yeah.
So I thought we could just, model what it looks like to just be two normal people who can chat.
Yeah. And I'm just so thankful that because we dialogue back and forth in DMs and, we've followed each other and each other's families for years. And I just think that these kind of kitchen table or sit on the couch conversations are so important with all of the media, with all of and from both sides, left and
Mhm.
right. It can be
Mhm.
so confusing, so oppressive, so overwhelming. And these kinds of conversations, just person to person, like my husband always says that it puts flesh on it,
Oh, I
right?
love that.
Like, it puts
Yes.
flesh on it. It makes it real. And you're talking to a real person who is a person who has a
Mhm.
soul, who has different lenses that they look through, who has different experiences. And so it's more important, I think, to do this. Like, the social media aspect of it is important, but if you're not doing this, then you're not seeing the whole picture.
It's true. And I always say break the echo chamber. That's one of the taglines of the website and the podcast and things.
Mhm.
But the truth is, I didn't really have to confront anyone with wildly different belief systems until I moved, right? Geography often brings with it a
Yeah.
different set of political beliefs of an area. And I think getting out of, like, I consider myself a classical liberal, right? I mean, whatever that was back in the 90s. And with a set of beliefs that I think uh, would be used to be considered liberal, and these days might be considered more moderate. But when I
Mhm.
finally got out of an, a geographic area and sort of a cultural area of those people who supported every last thing that I said, and I was met with people who had differing opinions, differing life experiences. I always say this, not only did it make me a more kind and compassionate human, it taught me that my ideological opponents are not my enemies, that often we are looking for commonality and good in the world,
Mhm.
and that a surprising upside of that is it also helps you sharpen your own beliefs. So I always say, I'm not
Yes.
trying to change anyone's mind. If you're listening to this, don't worry, you're not going to catch Lauren's conservatism. Like,
Yeah.
it's, I say that jokingly. We know. I hope you don't. I hope you don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
I love many conservatives, but yeah, it works twofold. It helps you grow individually, and maybe you change your mind, maybe you don't. But it also teaches you the human behind it. Can you expand a little more on your set of beliefs and how they have sort of come up against a world that I think is safe to say is at least in the media space leans a little more liberal? How do you live like that?
Yeah, I think something that I had brought up right away, we all have different worldviews. And so I think that when we're talking with people who are different than us, we have to approach it knowing what their worldview is. We all wear different lenses, right? So our worldviews here, and we have different lenses that go on those glasses. And so my worldview comes from a conservative Christian standpoint. I was raised in a Christian home with a mom and a dad. I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and I base all of my life off of the word of God, off of the Bible. And so anytime I have something coming from the outside, I'm looking to the Bible first. I'm saying, what does the scripture say about that? And so that's how I base my beliefs. That's how I hope that my actions reflect that entirety, not just cherry picking different verses from the Bible, but looking at the Bible as a whole. And so I have to look at where I grew up. what I believe. And I will say, as I've gotten older, I've had to take a step back and like really own my own beliefs. So I grew up with all of these beliefs, and I had to say, okay, I know I was taught this, but do I really believe that? And I believe that. So how does that look in my life? How is that acted out? And so for me, like I said, I already talked about marriage. I believe that life begins at conception. I believe that we're all beautiful image bearers in the image of made in the image of God. I don't think that any person is created less than one another. I believe that we're all equal. I think that we should have equal rights. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in the freedom to be able to arm and defend yourself. I believe in closed, secure borders. And some of these things, actually, most all of these things have a reflection of scripture on them. And
Mhm.
so, and that's not just with my political beliefs. This is how I treat my marriage, how I deal with parenting, how I deal with work ethic, the way I treat other people. So that's my worldview and where that comes from. And it has felt so oppressive to be a Bible believing conservative Christian woman.
The media doesn't like you. Let's just not
No,
not Lauren
no,
personally, but doesn't like
no,
your prototype. You're the
no.
prototypical. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's automatically assumed that I hate everybody. It's automatically assumed that I'm a bigot.
Well,
When in all actuality, I would invite anybody to come around my kitchen table and share a meal with me, whether they believe the same thing I do or not. I love people.
so I want to talk specifically about marriage, gay marriage, marriage
Mhm.
between a man and man, woman and woman. How
Yep.
have you confronted that? Because you and I know socially, or I guess social professionally,
Yeah.
some of the same people. And in the media world, there exists a huge spectrum of personal beliefs, right? And sometimes when we're at conferences or when we're at meetings where
Yep.
we are gathered as one, these differences can pop up. So
Yep.
and I think everyone knows where I stand on this issue. I'm like pretty
Yep.
liberal in this regard. And just because you and I aren't in the exact same page doesn't mean that we have not been able to be friendly and really try to engage and understand each other. But what do you say in those either professional or personal settings? Because I can guess that it's probably gotten awkward at times.
Yeah, and it definitely has. And I tend to not shy away from those hard things. A lot of people are like, I'm not even going to touch that. Like,
Mhm.
you do you, that's your life, love is love, whatever. But again, it's knowing where I stand in my convictions. It's being able to know and listen and understand what other people's worldview is. I'm not going to just start spouting stuff off to people if I don't know where they're coming from. If I haven't sat and listened to their story, why do they believe what they believe? You and I were at the Mom 2.0 conference a number
Mhm.
of years ago. The first year I had gone is I was up for an Iris Award. That was the reason that I went, and I was there for that. And I realized that there was this huge group of women who didn't share many of the same beliefs that I did, who were in need of hope, who were in need of encouragement. And that's my whole goal from my professional standpoint, is to encourage other women, not just to encourage them and say, you do you, you're great, but to come alongside of them and say, there's a God who created you and loves you. And so the second year that I went back, my whole goal, this was kind of when the trans rights stuff was starting to come up. We have some mutual, probably acquaintances or people that we know, authors or speakers or whatever. And they believe very differently than I do in that. And I just said, I need to go back to Mom 2.0 again, because I need to understand where they're coming from.
Did you
Not
have the opportunity to have any of those personal conversations, and how did they go?
I did, yes, and I did get quite a bit of pushback. It more was building those relationships and starting them then, and then seeing those things unfold on social media. Say if I misgendered somebody, or if I did speak out about the LGBTQ issues from a biblical perspective, from my own personal perspective, it was more getting the pushback from then that afterwards. And so it really was just saying, coming up to somebody and saying, I love you. And I know you believe differently than me, but I believe that there's a God who created you and has this way for you to live your life. And again, met with a lot of pushback.
Let me straw man this for a moment and come at it from the perspective of a person maybe on the other side of that.
Mhm.
Maybe feeling like, well, Lauren, why do I entertain this conversation? You don't look at my wife and I as a valid union under God, or my
Mhm.
husband and I. So why would I sit and have coffee with you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that it's most important to not just bring up the differences that we have right away. It's more about getting to know the person. So I wasn't just going to go up to my friend who's gay and married and be like, "You're wrong. This is wrong." You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that. It was establishing a relationship first
Hmm.
and then being able to have those conversations, because when you're sitting across the table from somebody different than you don't want to have stuff shoved down your throat that you don't believe. I mean, I know I don't like
On either
that
side. Right, right,
on
right.
either side. Like, I don't like that. And so it was more about establishing relationships, seeing where there were needs for them that needed to be met, and then having those conversations afterwards, or writing about those things afterwards, that hopefully could give my perspective. And again, my whole thing with what I believe about God and the Christian faith, it is not my job to convict you or change your mind. I am not somebody else's conscience. I am not somebody else's Holy Spirit. God does that work in people's lives himself through his Holy Spirit. He does the convicting. But it is my job to be obedient, to share what God's word says.
Hmm.
And so that is just my job, is to do that. It's not to sit and shake my finger and yell and scream and, block people on social media. It's just to say, "Hey, here's the good news of Jesus, and I want to tell you about it."
It's so interesting, and I'm hearing this through the lens of, a professional, as an individual, both from a spiritual perspective and also from like an intellectual perspective. The
Yeah.
intellectual side, I get it. Like I have been in conversation with people. I think people know that, I'm pro-choice, and this is something that I've felt strongly about for
Mhm.
a long time. And for this is just using it as an example, but you have the intellectual response, which is, Lauren, how could you think that? Like, I'm just as human as you are, and I deserve blah, blah, blah. And then you have the spiritual side of it, which is something else that people immediately become uncomfortable with. I
Yep.
know that even as I'm a Catholic, but even as someone who understands Christianity, I can feel almost when I'm listening to some conservative people talk, particularly, let's use about gay marriage as an example. I can feel like they're trying to evangelize me. Like, and I
Yeah.
don't like that either, right? It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I think you hit the nail on the head where the key to the type of relationship I think that you and I have been able to maintain, a friendship, a professional relationship, is the not trying to convince part, is
Yeah.
the showing up and the understanding that Lauren was raised with a set of beliefs and has come to
Mhm.
her set of beliefs through that set of experiences. And Sunny has come to hers through this,
Yep.
and Jane and Joe and Danny and whoever. And just sitting with the fact that we are not all alike, and that's
Yep.
okay.
Mhm.
But it sounds so corny and elementary, but it requires a letting go. Like I
Yeah.
had to stop, even from a liberal perspective, trying to evangelize my conservative friends, or
Mhm.
like, I don't understand. How could you think that it's okay? And I had a conversation on the podcast about this, to have an AR-15. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Please, and then I have to say, Sunny, whoa. And my husband reminds me of this all the time. You're not going to change anyone's mind on social media.
Yep.
And what it forced me to do was to change that approach, which I think it sounds like you similarly went through this. You remove the evangelizing, and I'm using that in a non-religious
Yeah.
way. You
Mhm.
remove that attempt to convince, and you sat in the discomfort, and
Mhm.
you looked for the commonalities anyway,
Yeah.
which is possible. And I think that's the message that I'm
Mhm.
screaming from the rooftops, is like, you're
Yes.
never going to align with everyone.
Yeah.
No
You're not.
one's ever going to be a carbon copy of, even if you are raised in the same household.
Yep.
So, talk a little bit more about getting comfortable with that discomfort, because at the end of the day, Lauren, you and I, or you and Jane, may vote differently. No matter
Mhm.
what, how much we love each other's spirit and intentions, we might vote differently, and that's okay. How do you get comfortable with that discomfort and take away that anger? Because sometimes we all want to pull that person over to our side.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me, one of the things that God has called me to do is to love people where they are at. Um, and that comes with a tremendous amount of discomfort.
Hmm.
But loving people, Sunny, loving people is worth being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Loving people and understanding people and being honest with them is more important than me being uncomfortable. It's more important to me than my feelings. And so there's a lot of times, even before we had this interview, I said, "Lord, just soften my heart to Sunny, soften my heart to her listeners, to who's going to listen to this. I think that, and I'm not saying you're my enemy, but it seems like the left and the right is just totally enemies. And it's my job to love my enemies.
Yes, and also
I love
I
them to be
think you and I
compassionate.
equally refuse that label. I don't consider you my enemy or you or
No,
anyone who happens to have the same. I
no.
refuse to do it. And what I'm trying to encourage people to do, and I had a challenge on my social media to talk to someone who's going to vote differently from you this election
Mhm.
season and just sit, have a cup of coffee with them and ask them why or tell me more about, and
Yes,
not in a how could you ever vote for him kind of way or
yes.
how could you ever vote for her kind of way,
Mhm.
but in a tell me more
Yeah.
kind
And
of
that's
way.
and that's where I think that it's really important. I do think that we can get in this echo chamber of news sources or media sources that
Mhm.
we're listening to. I mean, my sources that I follow are like 50-50 split down each side.
It's the way to do it.
Because first of all, there's some stuff that I'm like, "Oh gosh, I don't even want to hear about that again." But there's a part of me that's like, I got to know what other people think to be able to engage with people who don't
Okay.
think like me.
Oh my gosh, Lauren, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I say. In encountering or having respectful conversations with your ideological opposites will either warm your heart and give you compassion or strengthen your conviction. I mean, neither of those is a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's not a bad thing. And I have had people, personal people, friends who have been to my home mock and shame me and just completely kick me out of their lives with no opportunity for me to give a rebuttal.
What? Give me an example over what?
So I had written a piece last year, and it was about the trans clothing being put out in Target stores and some of the things targeting children. And I had come at it from like an intellectual approach. From biologically, a boy cannot become a girl and a girl cannot become a boy. There's biology there. Can you have surgery or take, medication or change your appearance or your name or whatever? But I just said it is good for us to embrace boys being boys and girls being girls. Again, this goes back to Genesis in the Bible. We're made in the image of God. I don't believe, as a nurse, biologically, you cannot change your sex. And so I had just said that I felt like it was dangerous to push this ideology onto children. And I had a friend, a writing friend, who has been to my home many times. We've gone to conferences together, just write me the most horrific email, just saying how I hated people who she loved. Not even people who were trans, just people who were gay. And these are people who I know that she loves, who I have met, who I have also loved, who I would never turn away in my life, because I just love people even if they believe differently than me. And I was so frustrated by that, to say, like, you can't, you know me, like, this person has known me for years, you know my heart, you know where I'm coming from, you know that I'm not giving you the middle finger and screaming at you and telling you you're stupid, like, I was so hurt by the fact that that happened, and then I was blocked on everything, and I couldn't even come back and say, I love you, you believe differently than me, but I love you. Like, I would never cut you out of my life. I would never treat you differently. I would never shun you and shame you. And it was so frustrating for me, because this is somebody who I thought I could trust. Somebody who I thought, even though we had differences, like, we loved each other. And
Mm.
so to me, like, love is patient. If I love you, I'm going to be patient with you if you don't believe the same way I am. And this just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, we had never even really had much of a conversation about the trans issue. And so it just came like out of, and I was heartbroken about it. I was absolutely heartbroken. And I think it was really weird. So we were going out of town that weekend. We were going down to the lake, and I have I had a hysterectomy and a left oophorectomy
Mhm.
last year. And I had abnormally horrible periods, pain. Like, I was taking pain medication like 2 out of the 4 weeks of the month, because my pain and my varicose veins were so bad. And I remember sitting on the toilet on my period. Sorry,
Where
TMI.
where lots of women do their best thinking
Yes,
because it's our
what
only
lots of
time to
us
be
do our best
alone.
thinking. And I had taken my cup out, and I mean, I had clots this huge in the toilet. I was in so much pain. And I was like, and I remember looking down and I was like, this is why I know that boys can't become girls, because boys can't do this. Like, this, like I'm trying to not just do the emotional or the spiritual. I'm talking about like the biological part of that. That like
Hmm.
boys can't, they don't have uteruses, they don't menstruate. And I remember just sitting there being like, gosh, and I lost a friend over this who I never would have pushed away.
What
Like,
would you bring? You say you bring them to the coffee table or bring them back to you somehow. You meet
yeah,
again. What would you say, and what would you want them to know? And again, you have to just work with me here because I'm going to try to, straw man some of these things and
that's
come
fine.
back in the form of what they
Yeah,
might say. They might say, Lauren, listen, my I don't know, my best friend is trans, and when I hear someone speak against the way they choose to express themselves, to me, it feels like you're erasing their identity, their existence. And, you know, this is something that not many people understand or would want to struggle
yeah,
with, but some do. And the fact that you would speak so publicly about something like that, it hurts. It's almost
yeah,
like you seeing right through this person that I love. And I can't handle it.
yeah. And I completely understand that. But I also would say that that person does need help. Like, I think that there's a lot of people who are like, people who have gender dysphoria, they just need to be shut up and put away, and like it's not real. And it's like, it actually is a real thing.
It sure is. Yeah. And listen,
They
and
need
and
help.
yeah, I mean, this is such its own topic that I want to be very careful on this because
Yeah,
I this could dovetail into probably a 2-hour discussion that I would
yeah,
love to bring experts in on, but I think it's a good prototype of a conversation to sort of hold up as an
yes,
example. It's probably the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial topic. The one of the top 2 or
one
3
of
most
them.
controversial.
Yeah,
And well, let's focus on this then, because I don't want people to be listening and be like, well, science this and this, that. Tell me if there's anything that would make you change your mind on that issue.
no,
Because this conversation is all about the ways we evolve in
yeah,
conversation with those close to us or those we
yeah,
want to be close to that we don't
yeah,
understand. So, is there any world, here we are trying to model civil discussion and civil
yeah.
discourse. What is the takeaway for people who are trying to do this? Like, what is your takeaway and how to communicate effectively with love to someone that you just are not going to agree with? What is the thing you lead with?
Yeah. I think you lead with love. And people would say that my love isn't the right kind of love. But I do think that it comes with sitting and listening.
Hmm.
What led you to this place or this decision where you feel like I'm trapped in the wrong body? What have your experiences been? Have you had people nurturing you? Have you had people helping you work through this, or did you just go off somewhere, and like, are you reading a lot of stuff on like Reddit, or like, you know what I mean? Like, are you doing things behind people's backs? Like, is it something you've been struggling with for a long time? I mean, I really think just sitting and listening, that was one of the more important things that I did at Mom Too, was listening to a non-binary person share her story. And it's just like, oh, I can see why you feel this way. I understand why you have this aversion to God or to Christians. I can
Hmm.
see where you've been hurt by Christians. Like,
Yeah, because yes.
I can see that. And so I, once again, that's why I think the whole relationship part of it is so important. But I can tell you that there's nobody that could sit right next to me here in my chair on my table that I wouldn't reach my hand out to hold, to
Yeah.
say, let me listen to you. Let me share with you what I believe, but let me listen to you first.
Yeah, I think that with any issue, that is the key. And I try to say, and I'm not overly opinionated on my platform. I'm basically kind of who I am. And when I feel
Yeah.
the need to come out with a certain belief or whatever I do, and I feel compelled to or called to do
Hmm.
so. But I think the leading with curiosity is the part that
Hmm.
a lot of interactions are missing. And
Yeah.
and like you said, listen, and if we're talking about scandal in the church, I feel like we can top the list in that
Oh,
of
let's
that as
go.
Catholics. You know what I mean?
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
That's another
Let's
2 hour
toe
conversation.
for toe on corruption and scandal and
Yeah.
betrayal and I mean, like,
Hmm.
we get it.
Yeah.
Like, I
Well, and
get it.
that's the thing, is like, I do feel like whenever we sit down for these conversations, it always feels like one person is right, completely right, and the other person is completely wrong. Like, we are all flawed. We are all broken. We all sin. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. None of us are perfect. We all have planks in our own eye, and we tend to try and take out just the specks. But we have to realize coming into those conversations, it's like, gosh, like I got my
Mm.
own stuff that I'm wrong about. I have my
Mhm.
own stuff that I don't do right or I don't do well. I mean, we have to come into that conversation knowing that we have our own flaws.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a conversation with someone that's provoked you to change your mind or your stance, even the slightest way? And this could be something as innocuous as, say, I don't know, taxes, all the way up through the most contentious, completely controversial topics. Have you
Yeah.
ever changed your mind?
Yeah. I think I wouldn't say changed my mind. I would say changed how I approach things. Like it can be really easy for me and my own flesh to just be like, this is how it is, da 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 da. Like, but like not leading with compassion or understanding. If anything, and probably a lot of people won't like this, I'm very conservative. I've gotten more conservative. My stances have
That's it,
actually
Lauren.
my
Everyone's hitting
stances
pause right
my
now.
I know my
Kidding.
stances have actually gone even more conservative. And so I would say that no, that they haven't. But I would also say that my love for people has grown more because of that.
Interesting. Mhm.
It has grown more because of that.
I have asked conservatives that I know this very question, and I've never had to deal with the being on the receiving end of this. But the question I often ask is, why do people hate conservatives so much? I mean, I think it's the church. Listen, guys, I'm going to speak freely here. Whatever. It's like we're at coffee. It's the church stuff. It's the evangel. I feel like it's that, right? It's
Mhm.
so easy to make a target of a conservative. But why do you think people hate conservatives so much?
I think I would narrow that down more maybe to say Christian conservatives.
Oh, you think it's even more specific than,
I think it is because we claim that
yeah.
there's one truth.
Is there?
We claim that there is one truth. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. There's no other way to get to God or heaven but by him. There is a moral code of ethics. There are rules that God puts up for us for our protection, for our flourishment. We don't budge.
Yeah,
And we,
that's
and
so
we don't
funny.
and we don't budge. We don't budge on that. And so I think that because we have
Yeah.
this truth that we
Mm.
build our lives and our foundation on, and then you have all the real crazy like the legit Christian nationalists that are like, "Rah," like
Well, the people that have
that's a
attached
whole
on
other
to that
spectrum. Like
ideology. Yeah.
I don't not in there at all. But I think that because we stand firm on the truth because we are convicted about it. So for
Right.
me, because I live my life in submission to God, it's not what I want or what I think. Like it's what he thinks. And so I'm to be obedient to live that out. And I'm more convicted about that now than I have been my whole entire life. And so will I budge on things? No. Like
Mhm.
I won't, but it has increased my capacity to love people who are differently than me because I am called to love them. I am
I
called to
mean,
be obedient to love people who are different than me.
this is so, I mean, more of a testament to our, I mean, not patting ourselves on the back, but the fact that you and I've transcended this, and I'm laughing hearing you say this, not in a toward you kind of way, because people who have been on this feed know that, I have often said, even as a practicing Catholic, all roads lead to Rome, so to speak. I happen to believe that a Muslim who practices their religion in good faith and a Jewish person who practices their religion in good faith, we all end up at whatever the version of heaven or paradise or nirvana or whatever it is. And I have this like cafeteria Catholic is a thing for a reason, and I don't want anyone to judge me for this, but I mean I'm laughing because the fact that you and I we believe different things, and you, Lauren, have been, and you know that, and I know you, but I also know your heart well enough that when I am posting something on social media that inadvertently goes controversial or becomes difficult in some way, you are probably one of two people who remains kind to me on this and who wants to see the best in me. And this is why I had to have this conversation with you, because when I tell you we come at life so differently, but we always meet in the middle. And I think I
Yeah.
said to you I don't even remember what we were discussing, and not that it's relevant, but I said, gosh, Lauren, like it, it's not it's not lost on me that the one subtype of person that's supposed to be, if you were listening to all the arguments out there, the most closed-minded and the most judgmental and the most likely to like see me through the lens of this evil person, is the one person who sees me for my real heart. It's so funny. And I don't know. Maybe it's a special relationship that you and I have been able to forge outside of
Mhm.
belief systems, but
Yeah.
I think in this I find hope. And that's the reason for this conversation, because
Mhm.
I think the intention of finding commonality and finding common ground, and it can be as simple as the commonality of belief that there is a higher power, or belief that we want what is best for our children and we're working in our and just recognizing that in the other human
Yeah.
can be all it takes to
Mhm.
be civil,
Yeah.
and to not block that person and to not
Yes.
reject them from your life.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really that simple. It's that hard, and it's that simple.
Yeah. But I don't think most people are willing to do that. I don't think
Yeah.
most people are willing, not even just to see the commonality, like there is a soul behind the screen.
Mm.
There's a soul
Amen.
behind the handle.
Hmm.
There is a person trying to figure out the world around them. They might figure it out differently than I do, but they are still trying to figure it out. And so to me, if I can lovingly and kindly and respectfully come along and share my opinion and why I believe that, like I'm willing to listen to other people's opinions too. And again, there might not be a lot of things that change on my end, but how I approach things, how I care for people, again, my goal is not to be liked.
Your goal is, it sounds like your goal is to stand in who you are.
It is, but my goal is not to be liked because of that. Like
Hmm.
I mean, Jesus said, like you're going to have hardship. You're going to be rejected. If you follow me, you will be hated by the world. That's straight up scripture. If you follow me, you're going to be hated by the world, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That's what
Mm.
Jesus did through his death, burial and resurrection, as you know. Jesus did that. He defeated death. He defeated evil, and one day he's going to come back. And so for me, my job is to be obedient in that time, to glorify him, to enjoy him, to spread the news of who he is, not just in a political stance, but
Hmm.
from the fact that it's like, gosh, like God loves you. And I get to share that with other people. And so it's been really it's emboldened me over the years. It's
What are
emboldened me.
what are some of the good lessons you've learned, or some of the positive personal growth you've experienced by chasing those similarities, or
Mhm.
by remaining above the fray, so to speak? Because what I'm trying to make it appealing to people
Yeah.
to get out of their echo chambers, right?
Yep.
And believe me, like, there is no one who loves a good fight better than me. I'm a 96%, Southern Italian chick. Like, come for
Get
me.
it,
I will
girl.
come for you. Full
Yeah.
sweat, like, I got you.
Yes.
But I think, like you, I have so often seen the benefit of reining in my personal evangelizing, my personal desires,
Mhm.
my personal worldview. It's not about me. And
Yeah.
I learned that in journalism. The story's
Mhm.
not about you. It's not
Yep.
about your hair. It's not about how cute you look. It's not about your lipstick and whatever matching. It's not about you. Just like the story in journalism is not about you, life is not about us
Mhm.
ultimately.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you could sort of help people want to, like, work toward this type of existence, so that we can see a little less conflict and a little less fighting. Hey, vote for who you want at the end of the day, but let's, like, be friendly at the polls, kind of thing. What are some of the good things that you've taken through the conflict, or from the conflict that you've gone through, in showing up
Mhm. Yeah.
as you are?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of different things. I think personally, it's just made me a more resilient person. Like
Hmm.
just me personally, I have become way more unoffendable. It's good to be unoffendable in this day and age. I do think it's so good to be in relationship with people. Most of my close friends, I would say, believe the same things that I do. That's like a protection thing for me. But to be involved with people who live in different ways and experience different
Mm.
things, and it's like, oh man, like that is so cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try that, or we're gonna go do that together, right? Like it's like being able to do those things and see outside perspectives of that, and then be like, oh well, I'm going to try that in my house, like I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And like these are people who I don't have a lot in common with politically or spiritually, but there's different things that I can kind of bring in. But again, like I feel like I'm just kind of like like repeating myself a million times over, but it's like it enables me to love people better. The more I spend time with people who aren't like that, like it increases my capacity to love and to serve others.
And ultimately, selfishly, it brings about more peace too. Like I try to tell
Yes.
people, I love to engage. I don't want to be around people who are like me, boring. And it's
Mhm.
not because I'm out every day looking to metamorphosize into another human. I, like most people, feel like I've come to my set of beliefs for very strong reasons. I'm not looking to change, but I find so much peace in being able to understand
Yes.
other people, even though I don't line up with them. And even
Yes.
though there is peace to that. So ultimately, I feel like it can be weirdly self-serving in a way. It allows you to exist outside of the social media noise, or I'm going to block you, or the I'm not going to invite you on the mom text string anymore. It
Yes.
allows you in a way to live beyond that
Mhm.
sphere, which is really strangely peaceful.
Yes, exactly. And I think too, like I always say this, like we live in just a bit of context. We live in about 2,000 people are in our town, right? So it's very small, very rural, but I love going to pick up at school. I love going to the pickup line. Like we all get out of our cars, we walk up and we get our kids, but all of us parents wait. And I have met so many different parents with so many different beliefs. It so many different backgrounds. It gives you this kind of look into what your
Mhm,
community is. Who
mhm,
makes up my community? Sometimes I think we're just like, well, everybody around here believes the way I do. Everybody
mm,
thinks this. Everybody has the same experience. We're all of the same socioeconomic status. When really you get this bird's eye view and it's like, wow, we're kind of a melting pot. We're
mhm,
small, but we're a melting pot. And so then how do you best show up for your community that doesn't look like you? How do you best reach out to people or meet the needs in your community of people that aren't like you? The more that we stay in our bubble, the more that
mm,
we're doing this or this. Sometimes, if I'm being really honest, sometimes you're just going to do that. Like the less we see of the needs of people around us, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm.
we just put ourselves in this little box, and it's like no, like there's a whole wide world of people out there who who long to be loved, who long to be served, who long to be invited over for dinner, or can I help your kid with pickup today? Or
Mhm,
you know what I
mhm.
mean? Like it gets us outside of our box, and it helps us to meet the needs of other people in a much more tangible way.
Yeah, I love that. There's a well-known person in the intellectual space and an author, Dr. Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a book called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And in talking about this is like a very well-known book and sort of he's spoken on this many times, but in one article that I was perusing before our interview, it was all about what I think I searched something like why do conservatives and liberals have such a hard time getting along? And he
Yeah.
says in this speech, each country has its own particular battle. Liberals and conservatives are bound around different sacred principles, and they
Mhm.
absolutely cannot understand each other. They
Yes.
are forbidden from understanding each other, lest they be kicked out of their tribe.
Mhm.
How important do you think people feel that self-identification within a group is groupthink? And is that what binds us ultimately to these very strict set of beliefs that doesn't allow us to grow beyond where we are? What do you and moreover, what do you think that sacred principle of conservatism is versus the sacred principle of liberalism?
Yeah. I think it's really important to note that like liberalism and conservatism, I think, is defined very differently now than it was just even 10 years ago.
Mhm,
Right? The
mhm,
conservatism and liberalism of our parents' generation, I don't think looks much the same. And so I think that it's important to know that both sides I think have evolved and changed or
mhm,
hunkered down on certain things over the years. I do think that most conservative, maybe not most conservatives, but a lot of conservatives would say that they cling to their faith.
mm,
That's the biggest thing that they're not moving on. I think more the left leans more towards bodily autonomy, you doing you, and it's to me it seems like more government control to the
mm,
left and less government control on the conservative side. And I think that we do tend to cling to those things so hard and so fast that again there's not any room for sitting and seeing the other side. I can understand. I think one of the things that I've come to know is that I can understand where someone's coming from, but at the same time I don't have to believe it.
right.
like like there's no like we I think that we get afraid to say I understand you, I
Mhm,
hear you, I see where you're coming from, and that also equates I believe and agree with that. And I think
Mhm.
that that's where the overlap is. I can understand where you come from, but I don't have to agree with it or believe
Mhm.
it. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Absolutely. I wonder when a strongly held belief of yours has served you and when it has worked against you, meaning like worked against your peace. And what was that strong? Give us an example of a strongly held belief that maybe served you and maybe also served to isolate you.
Mm. Um, I think one of my strongly held beliefs is on abortion. And it has served me like as a nurse, like in the nursing profession, like with
Mm,
science. That has served me well. I mean, that really has. I mean, just the science behind life beginning at conception and how that has gone through, and really being able um to use the science and the intellect and the spiritual and the emotional part all in
mm.
one. That has served me really well when I'm able to sit down with friends who believe differently with me on that. That has served me well to come and say, well, what about A, B, C, all the way through Z? And
Mhm.
we've had really fruitful conversations from that.
Give me like a nugget or two, something that was said during those fruitful conversations. I'm just curious.
Well, I think, obviously, and I've said, I believe that all people are made in the image of God. But actually showing people pictures of an aborted baby and them, or a video of that, and them not knowing that that's what a baby looks like at 6, 7, 8 weeks. The fact that babies can feel pain when they are aborted at a certain time. One important thing that I had was, back when we had announced our pregnancy with Deacon. So this was, 8 years ago, something like that. We came out, had our announcement, and I had a ton of these liberal friends that were just so congratulatory, right? Like they were so excited for me. And then one of them in the same week was shouting her abortion. And it was very confusing to me. Like, how can you be so happy for me that I have this life inside of me, but then at the same time, you're like the same amount along as I am, and you had your baby dismembered and you're cheering about it? Like your baby who's made in the image of God. And so it was, and we had a great conversation about it. We ended up going back and forth, and
Yeah.
she was just like, well, it is my body, and like I'm not ready for a baby. And I'm like, but do you realize what they actually did did to you? Like, do you realize that they pulled your baby apart and killed it?
It's
Like,
one thing to process. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Listen,
mean,
and
it was a very like, and again, it was a really like loving, respectful, and like we walked away, and she was like, "Just so you know, I know you're not judging me."
yeah. Well,
Like,
that's the goal, right? And again, I say we're bringing up some really hot button topics today, guys, and I'm specifically not delving into them because the intention of this interview isn't to um isn't to show you how to argue with people or hey,
no, no,
Lauren,
no, no.
and
That was
I
just an
but
example. That
yeah,
was just
yeah.
an
I just want
example of
I know
going
people
back
are
and
listening
forth.
like,
Yeah.
well, why don't I'm not gonna come back. The point of this interview isn't everybody knows what to say already and
Yes.
what they would say back if they heard
Everybody
you or
knows.
her. Everybody knows that. And what
Yeah.
we're doing is modeling the other way through. And
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, this is a really I feel like again we could have a multi-hour discussion on this, but that is a topic that is so painful for so many people to discuss for so many
Mhm.
reasons. And I have to hold respect for that and
Yep.
not even delve into it because I
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
the emotion that it can bring with it. So I'm taking
And
that and
yeah.
but
Well, I will say one good thing that came from that conversation, she really did openly share with me, like, about, like, again, not that I said that it was okay that she did that I didn't agree with that, but she shared with me her burdens and her heart and where she was
mhm.
at and the situation she was in. And I have consistently prayed for that friend from high school weekly ever since that conversation eight
Have you
years
stayed
ago.
in touch or
Yeah, we have.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have.
What do you think of the word platforming? This is a term that's often used when anyone on any type of social media or media platform interviews someone that the collective public decides is a wrong thinker. So someone could be like, Sonny, why would you platform a conservative? What do you, I
Mhm.
hate the word. I'm just spoiler alert. I hate that word. I mean,
Yeah.
I think nearly everyone is interesting enough, no matter how morally abhorrent their beliefs might be or how different from mine. I can always find the curiosity. So I
Mhm.
hate the word, but I'm curious what you think
Yeah.
coming from like another angle or perspective. Is there such thing as giving a platform to the wrong person and oh, how could you? Or are you like me, believing that people are intelligent enough to think what they think no matter what interview they hear?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who are smart enough to do that. I
Right.
think that there's one of the phrases that I like is chew the meat and spit out the bones.
Ooh, tell
So
me
like
more.
so like I can listen to somebody who I disagree with on
Mhm.
some things, but I agree with them a lot more. So I'm willing to share platform. I'm willing to share this. And I sometimes will even give a caveat. I'm like, hey, like I don't really agree with this person on XYZ, but like here's the meat. I'm gonna take the meat. It's good, it's nourishing, it's true, it's good for me, it's healthy, it sustains me. I'm gonna spit out the bones because those parts aren't good for me. And I think that there's certain people that I do that with more. I mean, but I will say I am careful with what I share. I am
Mm.
careful with who I align with. I am careful with certain things or different things that I platform. I mean, I have left a company before that I wrote for because they platformed something that I did not agree with. And
Mm.
so I left that platform. Um, but I believe that with wisdom comes discernment.
Mm. Mhm.
You
That's
can
more,
it,
yeah.
you cannot be so there are certain things that I'm so black and white on, but there's certain things with certain influencers or authors or speakers or whatever that I can chew the meat and I can spit out the bones.
Mm.
But that
Mhm.
comes with knowing what you believe, knowing why you believe what you believe. It comes with listening. But with that age comes that discernment. So you can, like I said, chew the meat, spit out the bones. And so I will say that I am careful with who I share and what I platform. And I don't, and you're probably like this too. Before I share something, I will investigate it. It's like, is that really true? Is that
Yeah.
actually what
Right.
somebody quoted this? Is that really what they meant? Like, are
Mhm.
you looking
Mm.
at it as a whole? And so I think with platforming different people, you have to be able to do your research before you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be candid with you. I do live in fear sometimes. I'm like, "Oh god." In working in media for so long, you get to anticipate what the stuff that people are gonna say
Yes.
it's really difficult to be in the gray space, as I call it, or that space, and I'm not even saying that in a politically moderate or whatever. I'm saying it's really hard to be a person in the digital space whose focus or desire is nuance, is
Yes.
finding commonalities.
Hmm.
What's amplified, what is making the most money and catching the most eyeballs is consistently hot takes, divisive topics, really
Clickbait.
wanting to pull, it's groupthink, right? People that want to log on and feel good about their belief system.
Yes.
And maybe I'm a weirdo. I don't want to be reified when I want to be challenged and I
Yep.
want to, but it's hard because I really, and this isn't meant to be like a what was me thing, but like the thirst isn't out there
No.
to understand nuance, right? It's not a sexy vertical in the digital space. It's people who want to be comforted in a way that they're thinking the
Yes.
right thing. So I do get scared sometimes of
Well,
that.
but I feel like that has been the beautiful thing about watching you and connecting with you on social media is that like you have that hunger. You have that thirst. You're not afraid to ask those hard questions. And I'm sure that you've gotten flack for it.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that you've gotten flack for it. And that's the thing that I think is so frustrating for me is it's like I'm just asking a question. I'm
mhm.
not pointing a finger. I'm just saying, is this
Right.
right? Is this
Right.
true? Or like, what does that really mean? And then you get bopped on the back of the head for simply asking a question.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
and
yeah.
people are so stuck. I mean, and I say this from personal experience. I mean, over the years, like I have taken a lot of these different social issues that we have
Mhm.
going on, political issues, all the things. And it's like, I have to look at it under a microscope. I have to ask the questions. I'm stupid if I don't.
Right.
I'm
Right.
stupid if I don't, but people aren't, I'm not calling people stupid, but people aren't willing to have that hunger and that thirst for more of the why behind things, the
Yeah.
reasoning behind things, the understanding of different perspective from behind things. People are just like, nope, I'm done. I'm walking away from it. And like, how do we flourish that way? How do we live together that way?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I can already hear it now. And I'll end up putting an intro on this, and I'll say it now. If you've made it this far into the interview, I really don't need your opinion. If you have thoughts on
Yeah.
Lauren, think them. I love the girl. I feel like you and
Yeah.
I have exemplified, and I am going to pat us on the backs here, what it looks like to be a conscious consumer of media, and a conscious friend,
Hmm.
and a person who leads with good intention and heart. And
Hmm.
if the only takeaway people can have from witnessing conversations like this is how could you, that's on you.
Yes,
That's on you.
exactly. Yeah. And
That's
I
on
don't,
you.
and again, people probably look at me and my belief system and they're like, you're hateful, you're a bigot, you're horrible. And I'm just like, you can say that. It's okay. You can say that about me. I will love you. I will tell you what I think. I will not push you away. I won't call you names. Like, that's just not how I am. It's not what I'm going to do because I'm called to something higher than that. And like, and again, I love it. I love that we can just sit here and talk
Mhm.
like this. And it's not pointing fingers and it's not judging, but it's like, hey, this is where I come from. This is why I believe. This is what I believe it. And I'm willing to have that conversation with you because you're human. You're a person. Like,
Oh, amen. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and I say this all the time, what you see on social media is a person fully formed of their own set of experiences and
yeah,
beliefs and spirituality and politics, and it's okay to show up in curiosity, and it's
yeah.
okay to show up in respect. And I think
Mhm.
people live in fear of being judged, that platforming or entertaining a point of view that doesn't directly align with what groupthink tells you to think, or I think people are scared because they know that they'll be in a digital wasteland, to
Yes.
say nothing of an actual, excluded from real friend groups, if they
Mhm.
even entertain the idea of having a friend across party lines. But
Yeah.
this is just not how I want to live personally. And like they say,
No.
you do you, so I'm doing me, right?
Yep. And
I get to love who I love.
I don't have room to hate people.
Mm-mm, no time for it.
I don't have like no matter how differently you agree with me, I don't have room to hate you. Not not here.
I love that. I want to wrap things up, Lauren, by asking you what is giving you hope, not only
Mm.
generally speaking, but particularly leading up to this election season, which is inevitably going to be contentious.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a dumpster fire if we're being really honest. Like and I say that from like all sides. Like I'm not just looking at the other side and being like dumpster fire. I'm like we're over here like dumpster fire. I wish that we had different candidates to choose from. I mean I wish that there was different options, but for me, I think it's so important that we go out and vote. It's so important that we go out and vote and make our voice heard and cast our vote in the ballots. And I think that for me, my ultimate hope isn't in one person that's going to lead our country. It's just not because that person's flawed and that person's failing. Like they're going to fail. They're not going to do it right. Whoever wins is not going to do it perfect.
Mhm.
Hope is in Jesus Christ, who has already overcome everything. That is truly, and I know people listening might not agree with me, that is my source of hope. That is my source of peace. It transcends all of my understanding. I know that the rest of the world is going to crumble around me. God's
Yeah.
unshaken by it. God already knows who's going to win the election. He's in control. I don't have to, I can act and be obedient on my part to do what I think is right. But in the end, he's completely in control and he's worthy of my trust. God is worthy of me trusting him because what he did for me through sending Jesus. And so I have hope. I have endless hope. And that's why I think I can come and have a conversation with you because this conversation isn't, you know, going to dictate how I feel when I walk away. It's not going to
Mhm.
change how I feel about you. But I have hope in Jesus. And and I think, but again, go out and vote, make your voice heard, stand up for the things that you believe in. Have these types of conversations. They're
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Your armpits will sweat. Like it's okay. Like
See? There we go.
it's
Mainly, but that's
okay.
mainly because it's just really hot in my house. I'm not nervous. You and I have talked many times. But yeah, yes, many, many sweaty armpits over the course of my social media conversations. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
but no, but like I love, and again, I love listening to you. I love
Thank you.
listening to the people that you have come on. I love that you're willing to talk through some of these nuanced topics, some of the things that are uncomfortable and are hard. Because it's like if we're not having those conversations, we're not investing in the human race in the way that we should be.
Yeah. Well, I want to end on that very hopeful and positive note. Lauren, thank you for being gracious enough to spend some time with me and agreeing to this harebrained idea I had of, let's show them what a civil conversation looks like. So thank you. Truly,
Yeah.
I have deep gratitude for you and your time.
Well, you're welcome. I love you, and this was great. I always like talking to you.
Thank you so much. Oh, and I should tell everybody where can we check out? I know you're still doing some writing. You're still in that space as well. So social
Yep.
handles, websites, the whole deal.
Yep. Lauren from Blacktop to Dirt Road for Instagram, and then just from Blacktop to Dirt Road on Facebook.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you again.
Thanks, Sunny.
Thank you so much for listening to this latest episode of We Gotta Talk. If you don't mind, I would love if you could leave a rating and review. Those help this show to get out to people who might find it useful or entertaining. I'm so grateful for your support. Please follow on Instagram at Sunny Abada or check out our latest blog post at wegottatalk.com/blog. See you next time.